Hi everyone, this is Ross Brawn's Total Competition F1 Strategy book. This is the strategy from Formula One. I think this was published in 2013. Now, reading the back of the blurb, across 4 decades, Ross Brawn has been one of the most innovative and successful figures in motorsport. Now, with Adam Parr, the new managing director of Formula One, looks over his career and methods to provide a definitive portrait of modern motorsport. They explore the unique pressures of Formula One and the cutthroat world they inhabited. What it takes to go to the top of Formula One and stay there appeals to millions of Formula One fans who want to understand how Brawn operates, and it will provide many lessons on how to achieve your business goals. Well, that's what it claims apparently. So you know, this is the front page of all the contents. About 250 odd pages. Obviously, Benetton, Jaguar, Ferrari, Honda, Brawn. Year was this published? It was published in 2016. Sorry about that. Of course, eat something. Now, of course, there is some terminology at the front of the book, obviously mentioning key names like Bernie Ecclestone, Johnny Whiting, Christian Horner, commercial rights order, downforce, the force produced when an F1 car moves through the air, forcing the car into the ground, the opposite of lift produced by an aircraft. The penalty of downforce is energy sapping drag, so the holy grail of F1 aerodynamics is to maximize downforce and minimize drag, enabling the car maximize and minimize drag, enabling the car to corner faster with high straight line speed. Hello there, everyone in the chat. Jen Duffy, I hope you're doing well. FOTA, the Formula One Teams Association, 2009 till 2013. John Barnard, John Todd, Frank Williams, sadly no longer with us. Luca de Montezemolo, Ferrari boss, Martin Whitmarsh, ex-Ferrari McLaren chief, Max Mosley, no longer with us, president of the FIA between 1993 and 2009. And Niki Lauda, also not with us. Pat Simmons, Rory Byrne, Patrick Head, Ron Dennis, RRA, Resource Restriction Agreement. And, God, there's a lot of stuff that's gone out of date. Hope everyone's well on this Monday evening before Christmas and New Year's Eve. Of course, the opening section is about the key moments of F1 during Brawn's time in the sport, which of course 1970 saw all teams from Ferrari and of course British organisations like Tyrrell, Lotus, Brabham, McLaren, and later Williams come into the battle. Of course, Lotus, Tyrrell, Brabham later went out of business. Jackie Stewart, Fittipaldi, and Niki Lauda became multiple champions. Of course, James Hunt in a McLaren defeats Ferrari's Niki Lauda by 1 point during 1976, in the year where Lauda nearly was deleted at the Nürburgring in a fireball accident. And James Hunt lost the win at Brands Hatch due to an oversized front rear wing. In 1974, Bernie Ecclestone, owner of Brabham, sets up the Formula One Constructors Association to represent and negotiate on behalf of the Formula One teams. This entitled team will become in due course the commercial rights holder for Formula One. 1977, Max leaves the March team he had founded in order to become Focus Formula One Constructors Association's legal advisor. He and Ecclestone would dominate the sport until 2009. Frank Williams sets up Williams Grand Prix engineering in 1977, powered by Cosworth DFE engine. Williams F1 wins its first race at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone in the summer of 1979. At the end of this era, the significance of aerodynamically generated downforce from the underside of the cars is discovered and cornering speeds escalate. The 1980s start with the new Williams team winning with drivers Alan Jones and Keke Rosberg. Then an appearance by Ferrari and Brabham's Nelson Piquet. There follows a period of dominance for the McLaren team with drivers Niki Lauda, Ayrton Senna and Alan Prost taking titles. Concern about high cornering speeds means a regulatory flat bottom to the cars is introduced for 1983. But the genie is out of the lamp and designers continue to find ways to recover downforce from the abandoned ground effect. Just before the start of the 1986 season, Frank Williams suffers paraplegic injuries in a road accident in the south of France. The Williams team goes on to win the constructors' titles in 1986 and 1987. During this era, turbocharged engines dominate and more manufacturers enter the sport. Both McLaren and Williams are powered by Honda turbo engines that produce more some 1,300 brake horsepower in qualifying trim. At this time, engines were replaced after qualifying. The 1980s see more dramatic duels between teammates. Prost against Senna in the McLarens, Nigel Mansell versus Nelson Piquet in the Williamses. August 1988, Enzo Ferrari dies at the age of 90 at Maranello, the home of the Ferrari sports car and racing team known as the Scuderia that he founded in 1939. The escalating cost and power of turbocharged engines causes a ban from 1989 and a reversion to 3.5 litre normal aspirated engines. The 1990s on track. The 1990s began as the 80s ended. McLaren in front, 2 championship titles for Ayrton Senna. But for the rest of the 90s, it was Williams, who now had genius designer Adrian Newey on board, and Benetton, who recruited a young Michael Schumacher. Again, there were notable battles on track. Williams drivers Damon Hill and Jack Villeneuve taking on Michael Schumacher at Benetton, and then Ferrari between 1994 and 1997 respectively. At the end of the 1990s, McLaren recruit Newey and enjoy a resurgence with Mika Hakkinen at the wheel. Oh, saw the result yet. Unlucky. Losing to Newcastle at home. Okay, but McLaren come up against the powerful new Ferrari organisation, which includes Michael Schumacher and a new technical team led by Ross Brawn. Off track, the sports regulators undergoes a generational change. Max Mosley becomes president of FISA in 1991, then an independent commission of the FIA. In 1993, Mosley becomes president of the FIA. May 1994, at the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola, Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna are deleted in separate incidents over the weekend. The FIA takes measures to improve safety in Formula One. There are no fatal accidents in the sport until the death of George Bianchi 20 years later. The FIA takes measures to improve safety in Formula One. There are no fatal accidents in the sport until the death of George. The FIA also takes an active role in road car safety, ultimately succeeding in launching the transformational Euro NCAP safety assessment for new vehicles. Active hydraulically controlled suspension designed to optimize cars' running heights is banned for 1994. The naturally aspirated engines are reduced from 3.5 litres to 3 litres for 1995. 2002, 2007. Ferrari and Michael Schumacher dominate on track for the first 5 years of the new millennium. Renault and Fernando Alonso then win in 2005 and 6. In 2007, McLaren's driver Lewis Hamilton comes second in his rookie season, 1 point behind Ferrari's Kimi Raikkonen and on the same points as Fernando Alonso, now his teammate at McLaren. McLaren is, however, stripped of his position in the Constructors' World Championship and fined $100 million by the FIA for obtaining confidential technical data about Ferrari's car. The first years of the century see a rise in car manufacturers racing in Formula One. By 2007, Renault, Honda, Toyota, BMW joined Ferrari with their own teams. From 2006, the Red Bull Drinks Company also fields 2 teams. As these teams are funded from vast marketing budgets, costs escalate. For 2006, the normally aspiration engines are reduced from 3 litres to 2.4 litres and a compulsory V8 configuration. For 2007, the configuration is frozen, curtailing all engine development unless for reliability or cost reduction. Off the track, German Kirch Media Company takes a 75% stake in Formula One before going bankrupt in 2002. In 2005, the private equity firm CVC Capital Partners acquires Kirch's stake from Kirch's creditors led by the German Bayerische Landsbank. BLB's representative in Formula One is Gerhard Gabkowski, who is jailed in 2012 for tax evasion, breach of duty, and accepting $44 million in bribes in relation to this transaction. 2008 to 2013. 2008 sees Lewis Hamilton win his first world title, taking it from Ferrari's Felipe Massa at the last corner of the last race at Brazil. By then, the global financial crisis has set in. The F1 teams established the Formula One Teams Association FOTA to negotiate for more revenues and to reduce costs. FOTA is first chaired by Luca de Montezemolo of Ferrari and then by Martin Whitwash of McLaren. In 2008, the teams and the FIA agreed to work together to introduce a cap on costs. These efforts are sidetracked when the English tabloid News of the World publishes an article and video footage that illegally breaches the privacy of Max Mosley. Oh, that story. I'm laughing so hard. I can't say what it is because obviously YouTube restrictions, but at the Singapore Grand Prix in 2008, Nelson Piquet Jr. crashes in circumstances that allow his Renault teammate, Fernando Alonso, to win the race and raise suspicions about the incident. A year later, an FIA investigation established that the crash was indeed deliberate. At the end of 2008, Honda announces it is leaving Formula One. The team is acquired by Brawn and Nick Fry. It goes on to win the World Championships in 2009, powered by Mercedes engines. In 2009, the sport adopts its first hybrid engines following pressure from the FIA. The Kinetic Energy Recovery System, KERS, collects energy from braking, stores it in batteries, and provides a 100 brake horsepower boost to the 750 horsepower engines. The Brawn GP cars, along with those of Williams and Toyota, sport an aerodynamic design feature known as a double diffuser. This design increases the surface area of the car and generates extra aerodynamic downforce. The double diffuser concept is bitterly contested by the other teams who allege it is not consistent with the intention of the rules. The 2009 rules had been amended in order to reduce aerodynamic downforce and therefore make the cars less sensitive to the turbulence caused by the car in front. It had been hoped it would make for closer racing and more overtaking. Ultimately, the double diffuser teams win their case in FIA's International Court of Appeal, who rejected the idea that there is an intention in Formula One's technical rules. 2009, Max Mosley returns to the offensive on Goss, proposing a twin-track championship from 2010, in which teams that agree to limit expenditure will have certain technical advantages. The large teams object, and Volta threatens to form a breakaway series. The Williams team is expelled from Volta for supporting the FIA's proposals. The crisis comes to a head at the British Grand Prix in the summer of 2009 when the teams and the FIA agree a resource restriction agreement to control costs. Max Mosley steps down as president of the FIA in 2009, and John Todd is elected president. Renault, BMW, Toyota leave Formula One at the end of 2009. At the end of 2012, the Concord Agreement expires. Bernie Ecclestone negotiates new contracts from the teams that will take effect from January 2013. The new contract significantly changed the way the revenues are divided and the rules made, with a small group of teams enjoying both a greater share of the money and a bigger say in how the sport is run. Volta collapses in 2013. From 2010 to 13, the Red Bull team and its driver Sebastian Vettel dominate the sport, winning 4 back-to-back double titles. By 2013, however, the Mercedes team is beginning to become competitive. The 2013 season is the last to feature the normally aspirated 2.4-litre V8 engine. From 2014, it is replaced with a new 1.6-litre turbocharged V6 engine with an expanded energy recovery system. During 2014 and 15, it is clear that Mercedes have produced the best engine and energy recovery system, and their car dominates. During 2016, and some progress is made by Ferrari, Renault, and Honda, but Mercedes dominate with their engine and car. Substantial changes to the car technical regulations are introduced for 2017, reducing grip and cornering speed with an objective to improve the racing and reducing the significance of the engine advantage Mercedes have enjoyed. The jury is out. Introduction: Adam Paul. Foiled the battle that is seen on the Formula 1 track between drivers. Gladiators of the sport is the public face. Behind them is $1 billion engineering war. Formula One requires the teams around 12 to design and build their cars to a set of technical regulations that change almost every year. The technical changes come about to reduce the speed of the cars for safety reasons, to try and improve the spectacle of the sport, and sometimes encourage innovation relevant to the cars. The cars are designed to minimize lap times around 21 vastly different circuits, from Australia to Abu Dhabi, Japan to Russia, the United States of Monte Carlo. The top teams can consist of over 1,000 people, comprising engineers, scientists, aerodynamicists, and highly skilled craftsmen and women. Most of the 10,000 components that go into the chassis and powertrain are manufactured by the teams themselves to achieve ultimate performance. These components are developed and improved many times during the racing year, culminating in cars often being effectively 1 to 2 seconds faster at the last race than they were at the first. It is winning this engineering war that is the foundation of winning a world championship. Sometimes an exceptional driver will compensate for a car's weakness, but it is rare. No championship has ever been won with a poor car. You can tell that to Keke Rosberg back in 1982. The overall performance of a Formula 1 car is truly astonishing. The acceleration from 0 to 60 miles per hour is a modest 2.4 seconds, but this is because the car cannot put enough power down through the tyres. In reality, the car's acceleration accelerates the next 60 to 120 miles an hour, requires only an extra 2 seconds. And the braking is astonishing, from 200 to a standstill in 3.5 seconds. The forces experienced by the drivers are also impressive: 5G in braking and 4G in cornering. There's more than that now. By comparison, a high-performance road car might achieve 1G braking and cornering. The excessive G-forces explain why the drivers have to be superb athletes comparable with any Olympian. The reason for the impressive performance is largely down to the aerodynamic downforce the cars can generate. They are upside-down jet fighters, with the downforce pushing the car into the ground through the tyres and increasing grip. Hence the reason for the high levels of cornering, braking, and acceleration performance. The cars can generate downforce equivalent to their mass, 3/4 of a ton, at 110 miles per hour, which theoretically means that at that speed they could drive along upside down and stick to the ceiling. At top speed, the cars generate 2.5 tons of downforce. The drag is so high that just lifting off the throttle at maximum speed will give over 1G of deceleration, the same level as a performance road car braking hard. In other words, an F1 driver who lifts off the throttle will decelerate as quickly as a Porsche 911 doing an emergency brake. Oh my god, my voice is absolutely knackered, sorry. Gonna have to take a bit of a breather. The engines and gearbox are also impressive engineering achievements. The 8-speed gearbox is highly efficient and changes gear in less than 40 milliseconds. It is also a fully structural part of the car, carrying all the rear suspension components and loads, and the casing is also made from carbon fiber composite. The power unit consists of a 1.6 litre turbocharged internal combustion engine and an energy recovery system, ERS, that captures the kinetic energy of the car and the exhaust energy of the engine through the turbocharger. This energy is stored in a battery pack and reapplied through 2 electrical motor generators installed in the engine. One electrical motor is coupled directly to the powertrain, providing up to 160 horsepower for limited periods, in total about 30 to 40% of the lap. And the other electrical motor is coupled to the turbocharger / compressor to both recover energy and provide drive to the compressor to optimize inlet boost profile and eliminate drag. The power unit, internal combustion engine, and ERS together can deliver more peak power in excess of 800 horsepower than the previous normally aspirated 2.4 litre V8 power plant. More impressively, they can do with less than 2/3 of the fuel used in the race, averaging around 6 miles per gallon at most circuits. This may sound like a gas guzzling engine, but in fact it is the most efficient use of petrol yet created. In 2015, a single 30 British gallon 100 kilogram tank of fuel powered Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes car to victory at Monza, a race of 192 miles per hour, which he completed in 78 minutes, an average speed of 147 miles per hour to 136 kph. I have called this book Total Competition for two reasons. Firstly, as we explore, winning in Formula One requires mastery not only of technical disciplines, but also the economics and politics are critical to each team's competitive position. As Ross would put it, the goal is completeness. Second, it is recognition that Ross's success was also derived from his willingness to take every aspect of the sport to the ultimate limit, in the way perhaps that Jack Reynolds conceived what became known as total football, and Johan Cruyff became its most celebrated exponent. If anyone can claim to have created and mastered total Formula One, it is Ross Brawn. Most of this book, therefore, is an exploration and thinking of Ross Brawn. I would like to begin, however, with a brief account of how I came to work with Ross on this project. Unusually for someone writing a book like this, I had the luck or misfortune to compete with Ross for one of the oldest teams, the Williams Formula One team. By coincidence, this was a team where Ross began his career 40 years ago this year. That's 2017. I hoped to set the context and explain why this book might be of interest to the audience than those who follow and are interested in Formula One. In March 2012, I stood down as chairman of Williams. I had lost a 5-year struggle with the man who controls the sport, Bernie Ecclestone. I described these events in the light-hearted manga format of a book that I call The Art of War, 5 years in Formula One. But these events also prompted me to think about how I come to lose this struggle, how I failed in a mission. I had set myself a mission which appeared then and now to be entirely rational and beneficial, not only for the Williams team, but for Formula One and indeed for Ecclestone. Some people might say I was ill prepared for the world of F1. I had joined Williams as a chief executive in 2009. My career had been very different. Thank you for 4 likes here at Crystal Racing. I had a classical English education at school and Cambridge, and in 1989 became an investment banker working in Tokyo and London. My work brought me into contact with a great British mining company called Rio Tinto, and I managed to get myself seconded to them to do some acquisitions. Rio Tinto offered me a job, and between then and 2006, I spent 11 years in the mining industry in South Africa, Europe, and Australia. Somewhere in the middle, I took a sabbatical to study law and ended up spending a few years as a barrister. But Rio Tinto called me back, and I couldn't resist. My last job at Rio Tinto was head of planning. This was a new position, as the group had never done any form of central planning before. each of the subsidiary businesses used to do their plans, and then the numbers would be added up. So I decided to find out, first of all, what other ways were there of planning. I went to see other companies to find out how they did things. This led me to the conclusion that you can't have a plan unless you have a strategy. But Rio Tinto didn't do strategy. In fact, the chairman, Sir Robert Wilson, was, I believe, the person who coined the expression, strategy means paying too much. By which he meant that if you couldn't justify an acquisition or investment on the basis of a simple financial evaluation, you resorted to strategy to support a case for overpaying. Taken to extreme, our decentralized and opportunistic business model left no place for planning. Nonetheless, once you have decided you want a plan, then you need to answer the question, a plan to do what? So I asked myself the question, what is strategy? Like most people, I was aware that the word strategy comes from the military world. So I made an appointment to visit the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst, where I met some of the people who teach history to British Army officers. This was an important moment for me, as I realised that some of the questions in my mind could be explored through history, and specifically military history and the deployment of military strategy. At this stage, my conversations at Sandhurst and subsequent reading led to two fundamental ideas about strategy. The first was that strategy has three perspectives: political, economic, and technical. Battles are won on the field through the military superiority of one side, but wars are won through a combination of factors, of which military superiority may be the least significant. It is famously said that after World War II, the Americans wanted to learn from the German army how to fight outnumbered and win, until someone observed that they had not won. Indeed, most great military commanders and armies are ultimately defeated by adversaries who are inferior on the battlefield. So strategy has to look at something broader than technical capability. It has to look at the political and economic resources available to each side and ensure that these are deployed effectively. The second idea was that strategy is but one level of a hierarchy. I think a lot of people intuitively recognize that tactics is in some ways below strategy, but military theory has evolved a hierarchy that acknowledges four levels: policy, strategy, the operational level, discussed further below as operational art, and the tactical level. This hierarchy matters because people tend to get fixated with the tactical level just as they focus on the technical perspective. I found these two ideas fitted very well with my experiences as a banker, lawyer, and businessman. I arrived in the world of Formula One at the end of 2006. The fundamental problem for my team, Williams, was that we were up against much richer teams funded by Ferrari, Toyota, Honda, Mercedes, Renault, BMW, and Red Bull. These guys were in it for the marketing, and they were spending as much as 10 times as what we could afford. Not only that, the revenues generated by the sports were distributed very unfairly. Ferrari even had a veto over rule changes. Yet Ferrari international assistants. It was not surprising that Williams was on its knees both on the track, our worst season ever, and off the track, with debts of £35 million. We were close to bankruptcy, and worse still, Ecclestone was pushing for a change in the rules that would have obliterated us. F1 consists of two world championships, drivers and the constructors. The Drivers' Championship obviously goes to the driver who wins the most points during the season. Constructors' Championship goes to the team whose drivers together have scored the most points. It is called a Constructors' Championship because under modern rules, each team has to build its own unique chassis. Pretty much everything except the power unit and the gearbox which can be bought from an engine manufacturer or another team, and some parts, like the tyres, which are now provided by a single supplier in identical form to all teams. Yeah, well, we've now got Haas and AlphaTauri or Racing Ball, so that's gone out of the window. So what is different about Formula One compared with other motorsports is that the cars are all built to one set of technical regulations, but they are all different. How each constructor interprets the rules is part of the sport. It is also what allows for technical innovation. But Ecclestone wanted, and this remains the case, the teams to be able to buy a complete car from another team. This would have been a complete disaster for independent teams like Williams. Imagine if you are the 5th fastest runner in the world and someone comes up with the idea of cloning Usain Bolt a few times. You get pushed down the field, your sponsors move to Bolt or his clothes, and you are finished. In F1, the car is everything. Look at the career results of Fernando Alonso. Oh, okay. Undoubtedly a bolt in his field. Alonso has won 2 World Championships and has been in the top 3 for 4 other years. But he has also finished well down the rankings when his car has been competitive. In the past 2 seasons, he has been racing close to the bottom, but putting Mercedes today, and he would be racing for the championship. Oh, hello there, John. I hope you're doing well. This is Ross Brawn's Total Competition book. Okay, I've just felt like doing a bit of SMA or just reading out a book. I hope you're doing well. Of course, Man United lost 2-0 to Newcastle, so that's nothing new. Of course, I'm just going to give Say a break for today because I think we all know Man United are in the dirt. So we had a few challenges and I devised a reasonably good strategy to strengthen the team financially and to make the playing field more even. The key components were as follows. First, we had to put Williams on a firm financial footing by repaying our debt, diversifying our sources of revenue, and making up for poor on-track performance by being the kind of team that companies would like to be associated with. This meant, for example, being a pioneer in hybrid technology, having high standards of governance, and making sure that women were in leadership positions. Didn't really work well with Claire, did it? Second, we had to change the industry structure. This meant fewer car manufacturers, lower costs, a fairer share of the revenues, and no customer cars. Third, we had to rebuild our technical capacities. Well, you put big asterisks of horses and Racing Bull's names right there. And of course, Racing Point during 2020 with the pink Mercedes. Over the following 5 years, we put this strategy into action, and in some ways it worked better than I could have expected. By March 2012, we had made a profit 4 years in a row, we had paid off all debts, and had some £30 million in the bank. We had floated on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. We had created Williams Hybrid Power, whose flywheel technology had powered Audi to the first hybrid wins at Le Mans for 2012, 13 and 14. 2 out of 4 board consecutives were women. We had created Williams Advanced Engineering, which was building the world's most innovative supercar for Jaguar, the CX-75, which starred as Spectre's vehicle in the 2015 James Bond film. And we put together a technical team and car that would win the Spanish Grand Prix in April 2012. The first race win for Williams since 2004 and coinciding with Frank Williams' 70th birthday at the very moment when the team strategy recovery seemed to be working Our prospects were better than ever. I was forced out of Williams. Oh dear, Adam Paul. How this happened, I have written about elsewhere, but in many ways it was the same as how Ross Brawn came to leave Williams the following year. From my perspective, this was unquestionably a failure. From the perspective of Formula One, the absence of any challenge to Ecclestone has resulted in the reversal of almost every positive reform achieved in the previous decade. The concentration of power in the hands of one man, especially with his consistent, long and consistent track record, is unlikely to be beneficial for our sport. Whilst the fate of Formula One, a sport I love, is of concern to me, my more immediate and personal challenge was to understand why I had failed and whether I, and perhaps others, could learn from its experience. Consequently, I went back to the drawing board. My failure had to be put down to one or both of two factors. First, that my framework was wrong or insufficient, and or secondly, that I had implemented it badly. It was time to undertake some root cause analysis. In April 2012, I exiled myself to rural France and began to analyse what had happened. During that summer, I was on a Skype call with Professor Lisa Jardine, who had been my tutor when I was a Cambridge undergraduate. Lisa and I were discussing my interest in doing a PhD and also the subject of my comic book. Lisa mentioned that the library in our old college, Jesus College, Cambridge, had a book of wars on the art of war. She suggested I go and look at it. From this emerged the idea of a PhD thesis, which has, as it turned out, given me the opportunity to look at the very same problem of strategy from a more rigorous and academic perspective. I will not trouble you with a detailed account of my thesis. It is gathering dust on a library shelf at University College for anyone who wants to track it down. But Ross and I revealed one aspect of it for this book. This section on the first book on strategy, Sun Tzu Bingfa, Sun Tzu's Art of War. For many people today, this is the work that you think of if you ask them about the art of war. The Sun Tzu was written 2,300 years ago and argued for a systematic approach to strategy at a time when China was in the middle of a period of incessant competition between many different states fighting for survival and struggling to be the one that could unite China under a single emperor. The final decades of this competition saw 148 states undertake 256 wars until just one state was left standing. This was the state of Qin, from which we get the name China. Sun Tzu is about what a state needs to do to survive such competition, and about what a person needs to do to become a great strategist. One of the most powerful observations is that strategists must understand his adversaries and understand himself. He who knows the enemy and himself will never in 100 years be at risk. The Sun Tzu also makes the point that a state can only be completely defeated through internal division, not through external force. And that, of course, is how Bernie Ecclestone controls Formula One and how he defeated me in the non-lethal but nonetheless competitive world that is F1. Bernie knew himself, that he knew me and he knew the people around me, and he was able to undermine my position to the point where it was untenable. The process of studying strategy allowed me to understand better where I'd gone wrong. Quite simply, I overestimated myself and underestimated my adversary. Whilst my thesis had helped me understand this, come to this realization, I felt that these lessons were more interesting and accessible if they were presented in a different way. In particular, many people do not necessarily love motor racing or are fascinated by F1 precisely because it is an almost intense version of the real world. The competition, pace of innovation, 2-second pit stops choreographed by 20 or so people, the money, the politics of the sport. These create an environment in which you learn quickly, but I didn't want to write again about my experience of F1. I wanted to work with someone who had really nailed it, unequivocally. I chose Ross Brawn. I chose Ross for 2 reasons. Ross is, to my mind, the most successful competitor in the history of Formula One. Ross is famous for his achievements at Ferrari, where he was technical director from 1996 to 2006. When Ross led Ferrari to the Constructors' Championship in 1999, it was the first he won since 1986, and when Michael Schumacher had won the driver's title the following year, he was the first Ferrari driver to do so for 21 years. In the 6 years from 1999 to 2004, Ferrari won 6 consecutive constructors' titles and 5 consecutive drivers. But that was not the extent of what Ross had achieved. He won more championships at Williams in the 1980s, with Jaguar in the World Sports Car Championship and at the Le Mans 24-hour race at the turn of the 1990s, then at Benetton in the mid-90s, Ferrari through the early 2000s, and at his own team, Brawn, in 2009. So Ross has won 24 drivers and constructors' title in 3 racing formula, 5 teams and 4 decades. This is what Ross Brawn's career looks like. Don't even want to read it out. You can probably find out on the internet. But it is hard to learn from unalloyed success. You know what? I think I'm going to stop it right there. It is just page 15 so far. My God, I've taken like 45 minutes to read 20 pages. So, God, I'm not a very good reader. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for watching. I apologise if you only just come in. Here at Crystal Racing, my voice is knackered, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.